It's currently projected that about 1 out of every 2 people, so in other words about half of the population, will be diagnosed with cancer at some point throughout their lifetime. And that is why, whoever you are, there's information within this video that will be highly pertinent to roughly about half of the population at some point throughout their life. You may not think it's relevant to you, but there may be valuable information to be had throughout this video. This may be the hardest video that I will ever have to make, and I've already cried my eyes out hoping that I won't break down during the recording of this video, because I'm going to go through some important information telling the story of my beloved Kristi Walton's journey through stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, HER2 positive pathology, going through her entire story and her journey of her battle with breast cancer, which is very important because there's hardly any information out there of women's survivor stories of HER2 positive breast cancer. Okay, so now that I've said my goodbyes and spoken my piece, I want to tell the full story, both from my perspective and from hers as well. So Kristi found a small lump in her breast back in 2017. So this was about 3 years ago now, going on 3 years. And this is a long story, but it's an incredibly important story as far as cancer survival goes, specifically related to HER2 positive breast cancer, which is the rarest, or one of the rarest, but also the most aggressive, but conversely also the most effectively and easily treatable, due to the advancement of 2 incredibly powerful allopathic pharmaceutical drugs that are actually incredibly effective. And all of the evidence shows this, and we'll get into that. But so it started out, she found a small lump in her breast. It was small at the time when she found it, maybe, I don't know, maybe about pea-sized or about the size of a dime. Small breast, and this was in 2017. Or small lump, I mean, not small breast, but 2017. And so she told me, and it's very possible, it's very likely. I mean, fibrocystic breast is a very common occurrence, so it could be very possible that small lumps could be swollen lymph nodes, or even just cysts or fibrocysts in the breast tissue. And so you don't really know what you're dealing with when you have the lump. And so that's why with any very important health and lifestyle, life and death choices, decision-making process, you always have to use logic, facts, reason, and credible evidence-based research in order to make that is your hub, that is your foundation, that is the rock upon which your house is built. And if you are frequent viewers of my channel, especially my previous recent series of videos on health, diet, lifestyle, and nutrition, revolving around the science and how to make evidence-based decisions, you should know what I'm talking about, and you should know how important it is, because I didn't used to think this way. I used to think, which is that, just take personal opinions, just take personal success stories and anecdotes, and, just take your own personal opinion and be your own experiment and go about it that way. But what I know now is how naive and how nescient I was, where all of you are now as well. So this is the hard lessons that we all need to learn from Kristi's failed battle against HER2 positive breast cancer. She fought so valiantly, and I'm so proud of her. The pain and the years of anguish and struggle that she endured unnecessarily, all of it was never needed to happen. It was entirely unnecessary. Had she taken my advice from the start, right from the start, she could have had it, nipped it in the bud and had it done and over with within, who knows, a couple weeks, a month or two, very quickly, very easily, very painlessly, without spending so much money, so much time and effort and resources and family, going out of their way and, to have to caretake for those that we love. So that is why this is so absolutely important. So the first step is you have to have knowledge. You have to gather information. You have to gather the best, credible, highest quality available evidence that we have at our disposal. And now there's more evidence, more research out there than ever before. So there's no excuse to go about this the wrong way. And that's what I specialize in. I'm not an expert. This is not medical advice. This is evidence-based advice that everyone should follow up for themselves and consult with their own physicians to confirm this based on the actual evidence, and always demand evidence and research to back up claims being made and claims being thrown around. So the first step is, I advised her to get a biopsy, because you have to know what your pathology is in order to then be able to take the most effective route of action, the most effective course and plan of action in order to ensure the best possible outcome, in weighing the risks to the benefits. It's always, everything in life is always risks and benefits. Even the healthiest foods, the most unhealthy foods, it's always about balancing the evidence between risk and benefit. And so you have to make the best course of action. And the way to do that is you have to gather knowledge. You have to gather data. First and foremost, this is basic logic and reason. This is the basics of cognitive functioning. You do not go out and look for personal anecdote stories on social media or YouTube stories. They help. Don't get me wrong. Anecdotal evidence has its place. It has its purpose. But that is why see my full previous films on health and diet and nutrition. Why anecdotal evidence is literally the lowest, the base of the pyramid, the lowest quality evidence that we have. But it has its purpose in basically in order to get a picture, in order to build higher credible studies, the highest quality studies on top of that. So it's useful in getting basically a general summary of which directions are possible, but it is not the end-all be-all of your course of action that one should take. And so I advised her to, it's only logical and reasonable. We need to know what her pathology was in order to then determine to make the best plan and the best course of action. And I would recommend Dr. Pamela Popper, Wellness Forum Health. She's got a channel on YouTube. She's a brilliant, one of the sharpest, most warrior-like strong women that I've ever seen on this planet. She is absolutely incredible, and she does this. She gathers evidence and data from the highest quality scientists and the highest quality medical professionals and physicians on the globe, on the planet, and she compiles it and digs through all of it for her profession. And I'm not just appealing to authorities here, but I'm just saying, if you want a stepping stone, a guide, she is a great guide to go to. And later on in Kristi's journey, we did consult Dr. Popper, because that was my decision, and it was a great one. But by then it was already too late. Pretty much it was already too late for Kristi. I advised her, we have to go about this the right way. It's very important. And most lifestyle, diet and lifestyle nutrition physicians and experts will advise you that never trust authorities. Never put your blind trust in any doctor or any person with a white coat just because they are the authority. Most doctors, and this is the balance between the conspiracy and the pharmaceutical, medical, industrial complex conspiracy, and the balance between the holistic alternative health route. And you have to combine the two, because it's never black or white. You can't just choose one or the other, because it's not that simple. Health and lifestyle decisions are not that simple. You have to pick and choose between which are the best options given your personal risks or your personal conditions, the factors at play. Life is a constant balance of variable factors, and you have to go about this. It does get confusing, especially in times of very emotional and scary times when a person is diagnosed with a very serious diagnosis of cancer. It's very scary. And the medical industrial complex, the pharmaceutical industrial complex, the cancer industry does prey on this. They take advantage of patients at their most vulnerable when they are afraid and when they're in fear, and they automatically push them, hey, we need to hit this immediately. We need to get you on these drugs, on these treatments immediately. We need to get you chemo, radiation. We have to target this and we have to hit it hard. The cut, slash, and burn method immediately. And they do that right off the bat to try to get you while you are at your most vulnerable. And so you need to understand that. But at the same time, you do not write off completely the allopathic Western medical treatment as well as pharmaceuticals, because they do have their place in specific conditions. Again, it's about risks to benefits. If the benefits of that drug outweighs the risk of not using it, such as in Kristi's case, you are gambling with your life. So it's very important to do that and to take these into consideration. It's so dangerous and it's so harmful out there, especially the holistic, alternative, largely naturopathic quack community. And naturopathy and holistic medicine, holistic herbs and diet and lifestyle, healthy plant-based lifestyle, detoxification protocols are essential, and they are necessary as adjuvants or in conjunction with specific targeted allopathic Western medical therapies such as chemo or radiation if necessary. And in Kristi's case, Herceptin and Perjeta, the two very effective drugs for Herceptin it's an antigen, it's an antibody that it blocks the HER2 positive. So I don't have all the research off the top of my head in this. I'm going to tell her story, and I'm not going to make this a pure science, videos, and I should, because it's that important, but I don't know how in depth I'll get into the science here. But HER2 positive is very important to be aware of, because again, it is the most aggressive and it's the most easily treatable, and that's what it turns out that she had. But she didn't know this for over 2 years into her cancer journey, which was far too late for her to find that out. Which, if she had taken my advice and getting the biopsy, she would have known that right from the start. She could have had a lump. I think probably the most effective route would have been to cut the tumor out, cut the lump out completely, rather than just taking, a biopsy from internally from the breast, which the reason she didn't get the biopsy was, and I was wondering why are you against, getting a biopsy? Where did you get this? Because I hadn't even ever heard any dangers of getting a biopsy. So I was wondering where she had gotten this from, and it turns out, she got it from one of her good friends, and our friend, who has been further along in breast cancer than Kristi was. So she had been into it, about 2 years or so. So she had been a little further on and had more experience in that. So Kristi, took her advice and came from the Truth About Cancer website, or the Truth About Cancer documentary, and these holistic, natural, conspiratorial, fear-based, things that, like Ty Bollinger, The Truth About Cancer, is complete quackery. Don't get me wrong, there are some true methodologies documented in that, but it's largely also composed of known frauds and shills and quacks like Joey the Rat Mercola and, Dr. Ben Johnson himself as well, and, Ed Not a Doctor Group. You probably know him best from Alex Jones InfoWars, and many others, Sayer G of Green Med Info. When I came home from from being with Kristi, and I came back to Texas, for a little while in between, and that's another story. But I found that my mom was using bone broth protein powder supplement that she had bought from the Truth About Cancer website, which is absolute insanity, because bone broth itself is literally carcinogenic, loaded with bioaccumulated levels of lead toxicity, which is biomagnified and bioaccumulated in the bone marrow. So bone broth is proven clinically, scientifically, and I will show the research studies here on screen if I get time to do the editing to do that, is loaded with levels of lead. Organic chicken bone broth. So this is organic, and it doesn't really matter the source. These heavy metals and these toxins, and animal protein itself is also carcinogenic. So why would any cancer website be recommending animal-based products, especially bone broth, which bioaccumulates lead up the food chain stored in bone marrow? It's insanity. So that just clued me off right there of how ridiculous this Truth About Cancer website must be. And so I eventually ended up watching the documentary, and it was complete garbage, absolute crap. And don't get me wrong, I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There are some, there are bits and pieces of truth in there, of course, but it's largely, it's not credible. It's not credible research. There's so much garbage in there as well. And so I'm getting way off topic. I don't want this to be like a 3-hour video story. So Kristi rejected my advice. She she's very, as much as I love her, she's the most stubborn, she's stubborn as they come. We had our clashes, when it came to me doing my research and trying to, and it's not just Kristi, it's literally the entire New Age, slash holistic slash naturalist, slash spiritual, community slash alternative truth movement, whatever you want to call it. Anyone who considers themselves woke or, on the path of, learning the truth about, our reality in life and the world and health and diet and nutrition and all these things, the medical industrial complex, pharmaceutical industries, all of that. The truth community is largely, they all, from my experience, most of my audience, most of you guys, most of you, my viewers, my audience, I'm speaking this to you. This is the hard lessons to you that I have learned through my journey, through my path, and learned from firsthand experience through Kristi's failed battle with cancer. I know you guys are all thinking right now, hey, and I'll show you, I'll scroll through this, the posts on my Facebook group all about it. And, the first thing you guys will all comment on this video is, she needs to go on a piss drinking fast. She needs to piss fast immediately. Which it doesn't mean take a fast piss. It means you stop eating everything except drinking your own piss. And that's what everyone is, I know there's going to be tons of comments, and just, you guys go down and scroll through the comments. And now there's probably not going to be any comments saying that, because I'm directly calling it out. So no one wants to look like an idiot, but that's the first thing that you guys are all thinking. Oh, tell her to do just cannabis oil. Tell her to not, she has to reject chemo. She has to reject radiation. She has to reject all Western evidence or any evidence-based medicine, and instead she has to do cannabis oil. She has to do, she has to piss fast. She has to do psychedelic mushrooms. She has to do ayahuasca. She has to do black salve. She has to do ozone therapy. She has to do vitamin C intravenous injections. She has to do, and a lot of these are very effective alternative methodologies, but they are most effective as adjuvants, which is in conjunction with other Western allopathic pathways or treatments, if necessary. The Western treatments aren't always necessary given your specific pathology. But in Kristi's case, she needed the Herceptin and Perjeta, the two most effective drugs against her specific type of breast cancer, which she did not know again until later in her journey. So the reason why she rejected, again, the biopsy was because, her friend had told her that they're not to get the biopsy. And now, at the time I was like, that's ridiculous. At the time I was like, this is, conspiratorial garbage. All of that helps. It's effective, and it helps for certain people, for certain cases. Those are anecdotal experiences, though. That's not the vast totality of the evidence that we have available. but in particular for HER2 positive breast cancer. If you guys don't know what HER2 positive breast cancer is, it's very important to understand this, because this is not just any typical cancer, okay? So every story that you're hearing out there, people cured their cancer with ozone therapy or with just, praying and Reiki and piss fasting and, Dr. Morse detox and herbs and supplements and, or any other holistic method. All of those cases were not HER2 positive cancers. They were not HER2 positive pathologies, because I want you to go out there. I challenge everyone out there, go out, do your research, see if you can find me. If you can prove me wrong, I welcome it. I welcome it. Willkommen. Please come down in the comments section. Show me a single case out there, a single case of a survivor of HER2 positive breast cancer who has survived HER2 positive just with alternative treatments alone, without Herceptin, Perjeta, or chemo, radiation, or any Western allopathic treatments. You find me a single case, you do it, and you link it in the comments down below, and I will go through and I will look at that, and I will update this video or make another update or update my own perspective and my own stance on this based on the best available evidence that we have. But you have to show me the evidence. You have to back it up. You have to put your money where your mouth is. You have to put up or shut up, which is what my life is all about now. I no longer listen to stories or hearsay. I do not trust anybody. I don't trust doctors. I don't trust, backyard shamans. I don't trust health gurus. I don't trust wellness mama blogs. I don't trust, natural news. Mike Adams, who is almost always wrong. I mean, his track record his research is complete crap. He's not an expert in anything whatsoever. He is not, and he's not even, has no expertise. He is crap, and he's more often wrong than he is correct, and his research is complete garbage, which is why his website is labeled as fake news, because it is actually fake news, not just because it's some censorship, conspiracy to, shut down alternative treatments, which there definitely is, but in his case, it's because it's actually false news. It's actually garbage. And so it's nuanced. You can't just take sides and pick sides and blanket statement that all Western medical is the Rockefeller industrial complex conspiracy, and even though it is, and it has been, that doesn't mean you can just throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's not about blanket statements. It's about specific nuanced research that you have to show the evidence for. So turns out I was wrong. And turns out, and again, I really learned this when Dr. Popper on her channel actually did a video, and I'll show you a clip, or I'll link it in the description below, where she actually came out about how biopsies can cause cancer metastases, because the cancer stem cells can actually begin to migrate and circulate throughout the lymph or circulatory system, and can take up hold in other locations of the body and other organs from biopsies. So it turns out I was wrong about that. I take my previous statements back. So again, I'm not dogmatic. I do change my perspectives and my stance when new evidence comes to light that, is shown to me. I always change my perspective and my stance based on evidence. And that's why I became a vegan in the first place, is because I had been eating fast food 3 times a day my entire life until somebody showed me all of the evidence. And then I realized, which I had never even heard the word vegan before, and that's when I realized, when I found all the science and all the evidence behind it, I said, holy crap, I'm vegan. That's me. I am a vegan, and I went vegan overnight instantly, but that's a whole other story. So back to the point is that, I do change my stance based on the best available evidence, but you have to show me the evidence, especially now that I'm trying to write articles and, make my own content. I don't want to just be throwing out, claims based on my personal opinions or my perspectives, and I don't want to mislead people making false claims. So I always go through and try to make sure that I back up my opinions, my perspectives, my stance based on some form of substantiation. I don't think that I'm the best at, doing high quality medical research, but I at least do the best I can to back it up with at least the people who I know do have the evidence and the research behind under their belt. So I'm not just appealing to authority, nor am I just appealing to science or scientism. I am going by what is the best route and the best pathway to do this. And so turns out the biopsy can actually cause it to metastasize, but looking back in hindsight now, her cancer ended up metastasizing anyways. So if she had gotten the biopsy right from the start, she would have known that it was HER2 positive cancer right then and there. We could have nipped it in the bud. She would still be with us here today, and she would be thriving, and we would still be making videos and educational content and inspiring delicious vegan recipes and whole food plant-based vegan cooking and amazing spiritual content, and we would be doing that together, which is what our goal and our vision and our dream was together. And we can't do that now. It's just it's just me now. And so if she had listened to me every step of the way, and I do not claim that I'm right all the time, but the track record shows in this case that I was right every single time. And and not only that, but everyone else around me, her family, everyone else around me had always been against me and remains completely against me, because they're against the evidence, because all of them just go by either trusting authorities, for example, or just do what the doctors tell you. And this is the worst mistake anyone can make, is to just trust an authority in a white coat just because they have a white coat. Most doctors out there have zero nutrition or zero training in nutrition and lifestyle medicine. Most doctors out there have zero understanding of any of the actual published peer-reviewed research behind any of the drugs or the treatments that they are recommending. Oncology is a little bit different. I think oncologists probably are required to have more well-versed understanding of the research that they're showing. But as far as like the general, physician, like the internist, that she... Okay, so this is a hard story to go by linearly, and I'm just going off... I haven't written anything down, so I'm going off the top of my head, and I'm trying not to make this too convoluted and too long and too dragged on, but... So if she had listened to me and gotten the biopsy, she would have known what her pathology was, and we could have put her on the Herceptin and the Perjeta right away, which Herceptin is made to block the HER2 positive receptor sites on the breast cancer cells, which is what causes the cancer cell to spread rapidly, very rapidly. And again, HER2 positive cancer is the most aggressive, rapidly spreading form of cancer that there is. And so the Herceptin is very effective. It blocks it. It blocks the... I forget all the mechanisms off the top of my head. Maybe I'll go through and link the research during the final cut and editing process, but I'm not sure if I will have time or take the effort to do that. I'm just basically trying to tell her story, not give an exact medical, documentary style thing here. And so if she had done the Herceptin and the Perjeta, at least she probably wouldn't have needed even chemo or any radiation whatsoever. She probably could have just cut it out, got the lumpectomy, cut the tumor out, rather than taking just a biopsy while leaving the tumor in. So that way it would have minimized the risk of it metastasizing. Although it ended up metastasizing anyways. It ended up spreading to her bones, her lungs, her lymph nodes, and into multiple spots, to at least 12 spots throughout her brain later on, throughout her progress. And so but we will get to that as it comes to that. But she rejected to get a biopsy because not only that, when I was just telling her this basic course of action that we need to first know what her cancer is, she was telling me, she's so stubborn that she tells me anytime I start talking about the research and showing her some of the evidence and the best course of action, she tells me stop, And she would get angry with me. She would get angry with me for just simply sharing facts, logic, clinical nutritional science, and research. Which she knows is my passion, and what I do, with most of my time. And she knows that, and yet she still, and it's because, it's cognitive dissonance is what it is. It's literally cognitive dissonance. You go into a form of fear and psychosomatic shock where, especially under such a scary situation as getting diagnosed with cancer, which she wasn't, she just had a lump, so she hadn't even been diagnosed yet. And yet she was too scared to even go, too scared to even consider, any type of physician, doctor, hospital, any type of actual, way to find out what her pathology really was, whether what that lump in her breast was. We had no idea what it was. I, thought it very likely could have been a cyst or, fibrocystic breast or something like that, or a swollen lymph node, but it didn't end up going away. It ended up getting harder, and, let's see, swollen lymph nodes, I forget it all off the top of my head throughout it's been a while since I was fresh on the research. I wanted to do this years ago, but she didn't want me to make this video, but now that, she's in her final moments and she's making her transition any day now, any moment now, it's just a matter of time now. And so now is the time that her story needs to be told. And she had begun to tell her story after she came to terms with all of the stuff that has progressed up to this point. And she had now come to terms, and she now forgives herself for not doing the right thing from the very beginning. And she could have still been here with us, but she had to deal with the pain and the absolute, the hard reality of having to forgive herself for not doing things differently. And she did. She came to terms and she forgave herself, and she is at peace with her choices and her decisions and her path that she's taken now. And so she's so strong in that regard. But So she ended up forgoing a biopsy, due to we ended up later on coming to the realization that it was fear. She was afraid to get a biopsy and to find out that it was cancer. And so instead she went with our friend's advice, and she did a black salve treatment. She was already on a whole food, plant-based vegan lifestyle, and mostly a doctor. We had been doing the Dr. Morse herbs, high fruit diet, mostly raw foods, but not entirely raw. We also included, cooked starches and whole grains, and leafy greens, nuts, seeds, and all of that. So I've been very in tune with the health and nutritional aspect of health for over 4 years. And she had been on the Dr. Morse, or mostly a raw food diet, off and on for over 4 years when she got breast cancer. So she had already been doing the Dr. Morse cancer curing protocol before when she got cancer. So for all of you out there who are now commenting in the comment section below, go see Dr. Morse and, listen to his personal hearsay and his opinions and, all of that. I like Dr. Morse. It's a good protocol. I mean, it's vegan, it's whole food, it's plant-based, it's lots of fruits and healthy herbs and all of that. So it's a good protocol, but he's largely a science denier. In the fact that he thinks starches are evil, which is I now know it's complete, but we're going off into tangents. This is about Kristi's story. But so, for all of you who are now commenting, go on a Dr. Morse, go on a raw food cleanse, on a juice cleanse, on a piss fast, the thing that would work is a dry fast or a extended water fast, which we did go to True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California, with one of the world's only medically supervised water fasting clinics on the planet. Absolutely amazing physicians and real doctors, real oncologists, real medical doctors, real physicians monitoring patients doing extended water fasts. And they have numerous actual published peer-reviewed case reports of curing cancer and various other chronic life-threatening diseases on their extended water fast protocols. But they are legitimate medical doctors, legitimate peer-reviewed published case reports that they are on a whole other, they are on the next level compared to Dr. Morse, who hasn't published a single case report, a single study, who is not only that, he tries to convince you to ignore and deny all the science. He tells you to ignore it, that don't listen to the logic and the reason and the he tells you to go with your intuition and to trust God, which is only a small part of the equation of coming to truth. That is only the internal aspect. You have to validate your internal intuition with the real world experience of everyone else around you. You are not the only one in this universe. Everyone else is also a part of that equation. So it's about the totality of evidence. And Dr. Morse, as much as great and as nice as he is with, his protocols, he is very wrong in many aspects, and this is why I'm no longer a proponent or a detox practitioner for Dr. Morse or raw food diets, or especially raw fruitarian detox diets, because that, if you go through and watch my previous full health videos about what I've learned from the ex-vegan carnivore debate, you will understand why I'm on this perspective now, is because all of those people doing the Dr. Morse think they're at the pinnacle. And trust me, I was there for 4 years before I know what I know now, through raw, hard life experience, life and death experience, is that you cannot trust hearsay, personal story, anecdote. You do not make life and death health decisions based on anecdote or your friend's personal story or anyone's personal cancer testimony or their personal story. They are not you. Their pathology is their pathology. It's entirely different than your case. You have to go by what your pathology shows you. And first, you have to know what your pathology is. Otherwise, you're shooting in the dark. You're pissing into the wind. And forgive me for being harsh and stern here, but this is what needs to be said. This is the story that needs to be told, and it needs to be told this way to get you to wake up, to really wake up. I know you're woke, but woke is not awakened. Even if it did actually happen, it probably didn't happen the way you think it did. It probably didn't happen because of the reason why you think it did, unless you can prove it, unless you can back it up with some sort of substantiated evidence, because the truth is not enigmatic. It will be known, and it does show itself in some shape or form. And I'm getting off on a tangent again, but these are important lessons that we all need to learn, that I have learned, that Kristi has learned. But it's too late for her now. And and we can't go back, and say, I told you so. I mean, as much as I could easily go back and say, look, I told you so, Kristi, I told you. And I told, so many others who are saying the exact same things and doing the exact same methods, which is listening to their friends and personal stories and anecdotes. You can't do that. You have to go by the research and the evidence and the best totality and balance of quality research that we have available to us. So instead, she did a black salve treatment, which is an herbal remedy where it's sarcophagic, which means flesh-eating, body-eating. If you put it on your skin, it will literally eat the flesh off of your bone. It eats your flesh away entirely. There are cases where, people have used it topically, to take like a tumor or something off their skin or their face or something, and it literally ate their whole entire face away. And for Kristi, she had applied it to her breast, and it ended up eating. So she had a gaping hole in her breast that was, eventually that tumor ended up growing to about, I don't know, at least the size of a golf ball. And she had a gaping gash. I will look through my messages to see if I can show you an actual photograph that she showed me of of her gaping wound that ended up eventually getting infected because it had been an open wound for over a year and a half. And it was the most excruciating pain and suffering and torture. It was literal torture that she put herself through, that she endured like a champion, but unnecessarily for over a year and a half. On probably a 12 on a level of 1 to 10 in pain scale. Excruciating pain, the worst pain you could ever imagine. Both internally inside her body as well as topically, on the flesh wound itself. So it was an open wound, and it ended up getting infected later on, roughly about a year. That's when she, so her stubbornness, and she had first gotten so angry at me for trying to, advise her to get a biopsy, so that way we have knowledge so we can know how to treat, what it is, if it is cancer indeed, if it was indeed cancer. That way we could know the best plan of action to take that would be the most effective to cure her cancer, either naturally or with an adjuvant, to Western allopathic treatments if necessary. But we didn't know that. We didn't know the best path to take because she just chose the path of, she was afraid. She was afraid of doctors and of the medical industrial complex for good reason. But it's important, you guys, to not be afraid. To not be afraid of doctors. What you do is instead you always question, and this is something that her family and they don't understand this. They don't understand the purpose of questioning the experts. So she ended up doing the black salve, but she would get so angry at me that she would tell me to stop, and she would basically I don't want to hear it. She always felt like she already knows. She doesn't need to be told. And it's not, I was never telling her what to do. I was never telling her what to do. I was just showing her and trying to teach her why this is so important so that she would still be here today had she learned the lessons that I'm trying to teach you guys now, that I'm trying to teach you all now, and that she would be trying to teach you if she was still here to teach you this, which is what she tried. She started to tell her story, and I will put a link in check the link in the description below to actually hear her story if you want to hear her tell her story firsthand from herself, so you can hear what she has to say about it. This is my perspective of telling her story, as well from how I see it, from my experience. But she never got to finish telling her full story, so that's what I'm here to do now. And that's what cognitive dissonance does. It's you start ignoring the truth, the logic and the reasoning, and the trivium method and the actual scientific method to come to truth. She was only using half of the equation, which is the internal, the intuitive part of the equation. That's not the totality of truth. The totality of truth is, again, see my previous videos, is what I call the twin pillars of truth. You have intuition and science. You have gnosis and scientia. You have internal and external. You have both. The reality is a mirror. It is a two-way feedback loop. It comes from within and it feeds from without, and vice versa. It is a constant interchange, and you have to use both. You have to use your intuition and your own personal judgment and your own personal experience, and you have to then go out and confirm that using the highest quality research and available evidence that we have. It's using science and intuition combined, and that is the truth. That's how you come to know the truth. That's what this channel is dedicated to. That's what my previous films and my previous videos are all about, and will continue to be about from this point on going forward. And I hope you guys join me in this journey of learning the true path to truth. And I don't think I'm the only one who knows truth by any means, but it's a journey, and I think that we are on the right path, and we found the right methodology to go about that by using this proper guide. So she would tell me to stop, and she didn't want to hear it. That's what she would always tell me anytime I started trying to show her any type of evidence or research or science, or she would say, not all the time. She listened to me she listened, not to me, she didn't do anything because I told her to. I never told her to do anything. I showed her all the evidence, and I showed her everything I know. And so that's why, she ended up changing her diet. And when I met her, she was suicidally, chronically depressed for over 15 years. She had lost her purpose and mission and meaning in life. She didn't even want to be here anymore. She was looking for a way out. But that's the biggest fear that one can ever face is you don't want to be here anymore, but you don't know how you're going to, because that's the big step, that's the big fear. And so she didn't know how, and the way people do that is, it causes such fear and such anxiety that it ends up manifesting a disease like cancer, or like, or it's usually a cancer is usually what that manifests as, is that type of chronic anxiety, that deep fear for survival and for, not knowing your place or purpose in this world. It will manifest as cancer eventually. Or also things like pain, suffering, chronic abuse, any type of real traumatic suffering manifests itself internally in the body as cancer. And that's not the only cause of cancer by any means, of course. Don't put words in my mouth or think I'm, saying things that I haven't said. But that is oftentimes a factor. It's not always the case, but that's a factor that plays into it. So she was also chronically constipated for years, maybe decades even. Forget how long, but for years she had been chronically constipated. She would go for I don't know how long. She wasn't even able to poop anymore, which is the process of peristalsis, the gut being able to move, to being able to undulate, which moves the food through the bowels. That will get paralyzed in fight or flight mode, is because your stress and your anxiety, your cortisol response, actually, it overrides your parasympathetic response, which is the nice, relaxing, smooth, rhythmic flow of the muscles, which is when you're in a state of healing and relaxation and repair and regeneration. That's the stress relief. That's the healing. That's the regeneration. And that's the regenerative principle of nature, of physics, that counteracts entropy, the force of death, and dissipation. So these are the two forces of physics. See my other previous videos if you're interested in that, learning so much more about how all that works. But so I ended up, I just taught her the basics of whole food, plant-based nutrition. And although she's the amazing cook, and she was the amazing kitchen witch, absolutely incredible. And that's what we were trying to document, and our hopes and goals were. But so I ended up, I just put her on. Basically, we started eating a lot of, she started doing what I had been doing for years, in my vegan whole food journey. And she ended up she started pooping like a champ within a week. She wasn't able to poop for decades, and she had to use enemas every single day just to be able to clear out her bowels, evacuate her bowels. She was doing enemas. And of course, that's not going to evacuate your bowels. So she had chronic buildup of who knows how long of chronic impacted fecal matter in her gut, in her colon, for who knows how long. And it was all clearing out within as little as a week on a whole foods, plant-based, vegan lifestyle. High fiber. And so, that all started clearing out. But by that time, it had been building up for so long, as well as her own, stress and anxiety and fear of not belonging and not having a place to feel safe and secure in this world, and feeling rejected and abandoned by her own past. And so all of these things play a huge role, and all of these things were a huge factor in all of that. And so she started pooping again, and the whole food, plant-based, vegan lifestyle saved her life. And she had been on that again for 4 years, and then she ended up getting diagnosed with breast cancer, which, of course, don't blame it on the diet. It's not the diet's fault. The diet is clinically, scientifically, nutritionally proven to be the most effective at preventing and reversing and curing diseases, 14 of the 15 leading chronic diseases in the world, such as cancer, one of the leading, which is, number 2 or number 3, depending on where you go in the world. And so it's not the diet that caused it. It is other factors. The diet and lifestyle it limits your risk dramatically, and it dramatically improves your chances of survival and of preventing and reversing those diseases. But it's not a guarantee. Things are never 100% guarantee. It means there's still a possible chance, especially when there's so many other factors like chronic stress and anxiety and feeling suicidally depressed. And although the diet and lifestyle nutrition, again, in my full previous film, the truth what I've learned about vegan ex-carnivore debate, or whatever it's called, what I learned about all of that is that it actually dramatically, it prevents and it cures and it reverses chronic anxiety and depression and those neurobehavioral disorders. And see my full previous films for all of that information on health and nutrition. And so for a lot of people, that does actually cure their conditions, and that can reverse and improve their conditions and help them manage and cope with their conditions. But not always. And so our conflict and everything, eventually, she was so stubborn that I ended up just throwing my hands up and saying, all right, okay, it's fine. I know, she thought she knew best, and she was not even willing to hear me out, or to look at any of the research or the evidence that I wanted to was trying to show her and get her to look at, and trying to teach her how to think critically and logically and factually, and to just be in your center and gather all your data and then make informed decisions. So again, this goes back to the doctors will capitalize on your moment of fear and tell you while you're in that state of fear that we need to act immediately, and that's never the best thing to do. Dr. Popper and all the other plant-based and alternative or even Western allopathic doctors, but the ones that actually know the science, they do the research and they know the clinical health nutrition. Again, this is where I was going, but I keep getting derailed off tangents because I don't have this planned out. But so most doctors have zero training in health, nutrition, diet, or lifestyle medicine, pocketing grants and funds from pharmaceutical reps in order to push prescription drugs, and they're taking money and benefits for writing out prescriptions. Not all doctors. Again, no blanket statements. The health and nutritional plant-based physician movement is on the cutting edge. These are the doctors that are fighting against the pharmaceutical industries and the medical industrial complex. And these are the ones revolutionizing the healthcare industry, making it about healthcare once again, and trying to put themselves out of a job. Doctors like Dr. Garth Davis, Dr. Clapper, Dr. Alan Goldhammer at True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, and Dr. Michael Greger, so many others. Literally, it's in thousands more every single day join this coalition, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and so many other the Plantrition Project, plantbaseddocs.org, so many other, these are the doctors that you can trust and that you can rely on, because they are constantly updating their information. They're constantly reading the nutritional science literature, published peer-reviewed literature, whereas most medical doctors currently have no idea. They have no training in nutrition or health or diet lifestyle. They think nutrition and lifestyle and diet has no relation to these chronic leading killers whatsoever. And that's why they are incompetent in that sense. They're experts in, actually practicing in the hospital. They're good at internal medicine. They're good at what they do, but what they do is not, for the most part, largely, so many of them do not do any research whatsoever into the drugs that they are recommending or prescribing, which is a legal fraud. They are legally required to disclose all of the side effects and the detrimental risks that put you at risk whenever they suggest a treatment or a course of action for you. And how often do they do that? Kristi's doctor did not do that. I had to go out of my way to ask him, what are the risks? What are the detriments of these pharmaceuticals that you're recommending for Kristi? Which in her case they recommended. So we're jumping ahead though here. We're jumping ahead again. But all right, so let's take it back. We'll come back to this. Let's take it back in the timeline. So she was too stubborn to accept my research. So eventually I backed off. I backed off and said, okay, no matter what you do, I support you no matter what. And I said, I still support you. I'm with you 100%. I back you up no matter what you choose. But, since you're rejecting, I can't force her to do anything. It's her life. It's her choices. And only she can make those choices. I can't make those decisions for her. I can only encourage and inspire and inform. And that's literally the lyrics to one of my favorite bands, We Came as Romans. Literally, I can't make your decisions for you. I can only encourage and inspire. That's literally the lyrics of the song. It's so meaningful. Same band that I have their lyrics on my arms right now. Show me your hands, let me wash them clean. Show me your heart, let me heal you. And that's what it's all about. Is you can't make decisions for other people. They have to make it's their free will choice. It's their life, and I respected that, even though I knew that it could potentially lead to what it now has become, to where we are, to this outcome, to her no longer being with us, in this world. And I still supported her regardless. I still supported her with all my heart. And I knew, I just wished she had listened to me. I just wished she, but they were wrong about saying just trust your doctors, just trust, the white coats because they know best. That's not how you come, that's not how you make the proper decisions, because you have to weigh the actual research and the risks and the benefits. You can't just trust authority. You do not ever, that's a logical fallacy. You don't appeal to authority. You don't just trust expert opinions, because that's what most medical doctors are operating on, is just doing what they are trained to do, which is, I'm not talking about like surgeons and, these people they're on point. Like surgery, that is a whole other thing. We're talking internal medicine here, as well as oncology, the cancer industry, the chemotherapy industry, so many of these doctors have no idea about lifestyle, benefits to all of that, but let alone, again, the research that they're actually recommending for these pharmaceutical drugs. So you don't ever just trust the doctor's opinion, because they will tell you immediately, they will try to get you on, the cut and slash and burn method immediately, which can be very detrimental, can be very harmful, and can actually kill people. A lot of times, and again, I recommend Dr. Popper's channel, because she goes through all the peer-reviewed evidence and the clinical science, the published evidence about, medical malpractice, medical fraud, misdiagnosis of cancer, which is very widespread. In fact, I haven't made a video about this, but I wanted to make a video about this, how there was new research published out of Israel where they successfully hacked into their own hospital's equipment, and they hacked into the equipment and they used it to produce false diagnosis. So they could induce false cancer diagnosis by hacking into the machines, the medical equipment used to diagnose cancer. It's absolutely sinister. And of course, they did this as, it's a test. They did it as like a white hat, test, which is to hack into the system to see if, to find flaws in the system in order to repair it and to fix it. I don't buy that for a second, though. I don't trust that for a second. I don't trust Israel for a second. I think that they were looking for ways to hack into these systems so that they could specifically, misdiagnose people, telling them that they have cancer and putting them on, treatments that would kill them even when they didn't even have cancer. And then also misdiagnosing people who do have cancer as being, non-malignant. So it goes both ways. The misdiagnosis is very widespread. It's very rampant. So You know, it's dangerous out there. It can get dangerous. And so that's why you have to take the care of yourself through proper health, diet, and lifestyle choices so that you can be the healthiest that you can, so that you can hopefully prevent any of this situation from ever happening to you or the ones that you love, so that you don't have to be a burden on everyone else around you's life, and they don't have to stop and give up their own life and their own passions and their own careers in order to take care of you because you didn't take care of yourself. That's why I dedicate my life now to being the healthiest that I can possibly be. You know, and I invite you, I encourage you to all do the same, to make this decision and to join in this journey with me of starting research, starting looking into your health and looking into health and diet and lifestyle and nutrition, and to join me on this journey and to join me in this mission. Because otherwise, if you ignore this, if you ignore that path, the risks are just, the statistics are so high. 50%, one in half of all women nowadays are going to be diagnosed with cancer at some point in their lives. That is where the statistics are at. That's what the stats show us. That's how rampant and wide, and that's just cancer, let alone the 13 other leading causes of non-communicable communicable. In other words, preventable diseases. You know, there's so many, the statistics are so high of you developing one of these preventable and curable diseases that are the leading causes of death in the world. So that's why I invite you have to take that responsibility on yourself right now, so that you don't have to become that dead weight that everyone else around you has to literally drag your body bag uphill. You know, is having to take care of other people. It can get so taxing that you literally feel like you're, you know, when those around us can no longer function and carry their own weight and hold their own, you know, you can't carry them with you. You can carry them with you, you know, for so long, but, you know, ultimately they have to be left behind. You know, they don't survive. They don't make it. You know, you can only carry so much of a burden. You can only carry your own burden, and we can help assist each other in lifting that burden, lightening that load. But it's impossible for one person to carry the entire weight of some other person, you know, throughout their life. It's just impossible. You have to hold your own. You have to carry your own weight. You know, you have to pull your own weight. And then so you have to take care of yourself. It's your body. It's the only place that you have to live. It's the only thing that you take with you throughout your entire life. You know, it's the only thing that is truly yours, that belongs to you. So you have to make this journey with us. Please, I invite you, I implore you, I beg of you. And so that's why I backed off, and, you know, I let her make her decisions. And so she did the black salve for over a year and a half, you know, through her torture and her torment, ended up again. And that's when she finally called me back in. You know, she threw in the towel after a year and a half. She could only endure that for so long, that pain and that suffering and that torture. And she threw in the towel and she said, I need you. I need your help. I need you, please. You know, please help me. You know, she no longer had the strength of mind or the strength of will to try to figure it out on her own. And that's what I had told her from the start, but she wouldn't listen to me. She was too stubborn. You know, she rejected my advice, and she said at that point she had given up, you know, fighting. She had given up fighting, and she just said, you know, at this point I just want someone to tell me what to do. I need someone to tell me what the best thing to do is, and I will do it. And, you know, so at this point she had given up. Her will had broken. Her stubbornness, her ego, you know, her fear had subsided. You know, and so in other words, she finally came around, and she, through all of that pain and all of that suffering, it took that much pain and that much suffering and that much torture to finally break her and to get her to ask for help, you know, to ask for help. And she finally asked me for help, and she finally realized that in the fact that she should have gotten a biopsy and a diagnosis from the start. They weren't right about, just going and trusting a doctor and doing everything that they said, because they weren't right about that. Although it depends on what the doctor recommends, but that's my point, is that that's not the proper method to go about it, even if the outcome could have ended up being correct. That's not how that's dangerous. It's risky. It's very risky to go about things just trusting your doctor, especially. So again, what I was getting at is Dr. Popper and the plant-based physician movement, they will advise you to look. I know it's a time. I know your diagnosis, or you get diagnosed with cancer, or you find a lump, or some type of, you find out that you might have cancer. First thing you do is you take a period of time, not too long. You don't want to put it off for too long, but you need a window of time to just let the emotions subside. Practice meditation, practice stress relieving practices, meditation, yoga, stretching, sauna. And sauna, hyperthermia is one of the most effective treatments for curing cancer as well. So that has to be included in pretty much everyone's maintenance, health, and lifestyle routines. I've got a full video on that, Science of Hydrotherapy, or I retitled it to the Incredible Science of Hot and Cold Showers. Go see that one for the incredible power of the lymphatic system, healing the body through the lymphatic system, and through methods of hyperthermia and hypothermia. Switch fluctuating between hot and cold, hydrotherapy. But hyperthermia is very effective at curing cancer, as well as inducing autophagy and various other biomechanisms. It's incredibly powerful, incredibly, mind-blowingly powerful. But so do those practices to stress relief. Find your center, so that way you can think clearly. You have to still your heart. You have to calm your nervous system so that you can then align that pathway between the heart and the mind and the gut brain. From the gut brain axis, the vagus nerve, which unites the gut brain to the heart mind, to the actual, the physical brain. And it's the Trinity, the Holy Trinity of, as above, so below. The gut to the heart to the mind, you have to align all three of them in order to come to the truth. Otherwise, you will never be able, you will have some sort of blockage. You will run into cognitive dissonance. You won't be able to listen to research and science. It will be too confusing for you. It will be because your emotions are too out of balance. You're too stressed. You're too anxious to be able to focus on making proper, accurate, evidence-based, research-based decisions. So you have to calm and still and quiet your mind and calm your emotions so that you can then do good research and find the best available evidence that is out there. You can find the best physicians who know all the research. You always have to ask them for the research. Never just trust opinions or hearsay. Never from an expert as well. Not even experts. Never just trust opinion or hearsay. Always get them to hand you documents in hand. Documents in hand research for any pharmaceutical treatment. Documents in hand, boy. And tell them, put up or shut up. Documents in hand. Tell them you demand research. They are legally required to tell you up front, outright, the risks and the detriments. They have to tell you it's called full disclosure. They're legally bound. Doctor-patient binding legality. They have to disclose, full disclosure of both the risks and the benefits, and weigh the risks to the benefits. They have to show you the whole spectrum. They have to tell you that outright before they tell you a course of action or a plan. And how often do they tell you the risks? Do you have to ask them to tell you the risks of that? Yeah, you do. You always end up having to ask them because they never end up disclosing it. At least not through my experience. They never told that to Kristi, but I am informed. I do my research, so I know this. And that's why I was assigned, but we're skipping ahead. So now you know that she was in the hospital, so I need to tell you how. Okay, so she finally threw in the towel, you know, and so what we ended up planning on doing was, you know, I was like, okay, so it's time, you know, so now we need to get the biopsy, you know, and at this time she was in such pain, had been through such torture and such torment, that she finally just said. So stay tuned for the next part. We'll pick up right here where we left off. And so again, my name is Cullen Smith. This is Lifting the Veil. You can find all of my full books, presentations, videos, films, articles, posts at patreon.com/liftingtheveil. And there is also a ton of exclusive content, and I will leave the cited reference links in the description down below. So you can check that out for all of my full content, and I will see you guys in the next video. I rely solely on word of mouth, and the recommended algorithms are not recommending any of my videos or films anymore. My channel has literally been completely restricted, so I rely on your help by sharing my work around if you appreciate it, and leave me your comments. I definitely want to know what you have to share and what you have to think about all of this stuff, and I will see you in the next video.